Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to another episode of Side by Side with me, your host Kazi, Shafiqur, Rahman. Today we explore a heartbreaking story that has haunted one family for 30 years, the unsolved murder of Atiq Hussain.
30 years ago, Atiq Hussain bled to death on the doorstep of his family home.
Why am I not getting the same treatment? Why? Because what? Because he was just an average guy?
So do you feel let down by the police force?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Joining us today is Atiq's daughter, Yasmin, who was only 10 years old when she witnessed the aftermath of her father's murder. Today, she leads her family's fight for answers. From what I'm hearing, if they really wanted to get to the bottom of this, they could.
How does an average person get justice? How is a new lead going to generate if you don't remind people what had happened? He died in front of the doorstep and I am his main witness. I need to know why.
On September the 18th, 1994, Atiq was brutally stabbed outside his home in East Ham. And despite advances in forensic science and multiple arrests, his murder remains unsolved. Now, on the 30th anniversary of his tragic death, his family is renewing the call for justice. In this emotional conversation, we'll be asking Yasmin some tough but critical questions. Why has the case been unsolved for 30 years? Whether the police were negligent during investigation, whether the murderer was known to the family, and if there is anyone out there who is ready to come forward with evidence to put the murderer away. Sister Yasmin, welcome to Side by Side.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you for coming in. Now let's get straight into our today's episode because there's quite a lot to cover. We're here to, of course, speak about your father, late father, who was brutally murdered some 30 years ago. So take us back in time from what you remember and I guess up until now, what has happened in between.
Okay. I'll take you back to the night. So 18th of September 1994, around about 1:45 a.m. I heard some noise outside my bedroom window. I had a dog barking. I had people running. And I couldn't understand what that was. Obviously being scared, being 10 years old back then. And then I hear a man asking for help. Help, police, screaming really loud. I tried to block it out because obviously I was frightened, but didn't have the courage to look out the window to see who that is until the doorbell rang. And then me and my mum went to open the door. And I said, Mum, don't open the door. It's a man asking for help. He's been bitten by a dog. Because that's being a child, that's all I can make out of what's happened. My mum looked at the window first because she didn't want to just open the door because she thought, oh, Dad's probably sleeping. And then she sees my father on the telephone box, which is just 70 yards from our doorstep. So she basically was trying to do hand gesture keys, and he was like, no keys. So she went, quickly, let's open the door. We went downstairs. We opened the door for him. And he kind of like, his body weight kind of just dropped on us. And he said, everything is finished. Everything is finished. As me and my mum was pulling him into the door and we closed the door, I think at that point, my dad said to my mum, in Bengali, I've been stabbed. I didn't hear that. So once I was too busy looking at, my dad was covered in blood. We put him down just behind the door, ran back upstairs because we had a maisonette, and said, okay, we need to call the police. Mum came upstairs as well, so he was by himself for a few minutes. I said, right, let's call the police. I called the police, picked the police, I called the police and said, I need an ambulance now. My dad's been bitten by a dog. This is the mind of a 10-year-old here. And my mum went, no, call the police as well. Your dad has been stabbed. And I went, oh, I'm so sorry. My dad hasn't been bitten by a dog. He's actually been stabbed. And then that's when it occurred to me, oh my God, what's happened to my dad? That's the man that's been shouting outside. That's been asking for help, please. It's my dad. And I went back running downstairs to him. And all he kept on saying is, let me go to sleep. Let me go to sleep. Everything is finished. And it occurred to me that I can't let him go to sleep. And if I let him go to sleep, what happened? He doesn't open his eyes again. And I said, no, Dad, you can't go to sleep. I know it's your bedtime, but you can't go to sleep. You need to stay awake for me. And he was panting. He was calling Allah's name. And I was like, no, nothing's going to happen to my dad, because my faith in Allah is too strong. And I know it's not going to happen to me. And being 10-year-old, I was a very brave person because my dad made me like this. And he was a very strong, brave man himself. It occurred to me, I need to ask him who done this to him. And I that moment when he was panting, he was trying to climb up the stairs, I was trying to stop him. He was very agitated. He was very drowsy. He's covered in blood. I was covered in blood. And I said, Dad, please tell me who's done this to you. And at that point, the police rang the doorbell. And I was like, oh no, who is this? And they're like, it's the police, let us in. But because my dad had lost so much blood and all his body weight was on the floor, and I was literally trying to lift his leg up to let the police in. And the police just popped his head in. And again, I said, Dad, please tell me who done this to you. And this is when he wanted to explain me and to the police. He held his two fingers up and he went, two Asians done this to me. So then I knew it was two Asians at that point. Police came in, still no sign of ambulance. Well over 20 minutes, no ambulance here. In my head, I'm thinking, why is the ambulance not coming? My dad's going to go. Why is the ambulance not coming? The police officer went, okay, I've got a first aid kit. Let's go and bring that. So he went and got the first aid kit, brought it back into the actual inside the house. We took my dad's big leather jacket off because he was wearing a thick leather brown jacket. He had a silk black shirt on. We took that off and we're looking all over his body to find out where the cut is. Where's he bleeding from? Where is this blood coming out from? And then as I turned him around and under his left arm, he had a massive 10 centimeter cut, which was dry. And I witnessed that. We got the bandage. He told me, you hold it and I'm going to wrap your dad. We wrapped him around with the bandage. But still, I was like, nothing's going to happen. My dad was panting, let me go to sleep. Lock the car door, he said to me just before. Lock the car door, my car is open. I said, Dad, forget your car's not that important. And my dad loved his car. So it indicated to me that he didn't even get the chance to lock his car. And then he was panting so much. And that's when the ambulance came, the police came, and they told me to move away. My mum at that point, my baby brother was actually 9 months old, so between 7 and 9 months old. And my other brother was 7 years old. He was in deep, deep sleep. He couldn't hear anything or sense anything what was going on. And the little one was crying. So my mum, she wasn't stable what was happening. She was thinking, oh, okay, we're going to pick him up and bring him to bed. And all my uncles and my aunties, everyone's going to come. The police going to come and it's all going to be okay. So she wasn't sitting with him because she was trying to figure the logistics out of things, thinking it's going to be okay. And then they took him away. And I said, you can't take my dad away. I need to come. They said, we're going to have to take him. You stay. And that's when I ran upstairs and I thought, let me look out the window to see if I can see my dad. And I can see him on the stretcher and with his eyes closed. And that's when it occurred to me, I don't know if he's going to open his eyes. I went, nah, my God's not going to do that to me. No. My dad done Hajj. He's a Haji. He's a young Haji. He did Hajj a year before he passed away. Being back then in 1994, very few youngsters went to Hajj. My dad's belief in Islam and my dad's belief in, the whole of his iman, being there for others, helping others, being a positive spirit in the community. Everybody loved him. He was the main center of attention. Everybody loved him. Not one person can turn around and say one thing bad about my dad because he was one of those characters that even the elderly people loved him. Even the youngsters and the kids loved him. And then they took him to hospital. They tried to put blood in him in the first hour or so. 6 doctors tried. They couldn't. He was then announced that he had passed away. And that's when my life had changed.
Did you eventually make it to the hospital?
No, because we had... police then came to collect us. We had to go to a neighbour's house, 2 neighbours. She was a Pakistani neighbour. She was very, very lovely. She was one of the key witnesses, in fact, because she got up to feed her baby that night and she saw them pass by her window. Hence, she was the person that actually was able to do the e-fit of a sketch of the actual murderer.
So did she also confirm us two Asian men?
Yeah, she confirmed there's 2 Asian men, but she said one of them was the one that she properly got e-fit of. And that's why we had an e-fit of that one person.
Wallah, like, this is hearing this, because I've got a 10-year-old daughter as well. And I'm just like trying to imagine me and my daughter and how she would react being a 10-year-old. Like, I just don't know, like, what would happen, like how they would cope and how they would react. This is so sad. Honestly, this is so sad. And how come more people don't know about it?
I think the main question to me was, and it has been, like, the road that we lived on was Burnells Avenue in East Ham. It was a very short road, 20, 25 houses. You can double park and then that's about it. Like, there's no more space. My dad parked his car in front of the house and he was screaming with his lungs, screaming for help, police, not even in Bengali. My dad was very well spoken English, because he studied here, and he knows how the gist of everything is, right? He was clued up.
I mean, obviously you were scared, like, who is that person asking for help? Like, should I even, look out the window?
Yeah.
I guess, what time was it? Do you know what time it was?
It was between 1:30, and I remember looking at the clock. I'm like, Dad should be home. No, he's not home. But when the dog was barking, that dog, my remembrance with the dog is, I used to feed the dog crisps. There's holes in the fences up until now.
Okay.
Where off the main where our house is, and his name.
So
was
there was
Ben.
a dog nearby.
There was a dog basically which kind of led onto the main road.
Okay.
And he was in the garden that night.
Okay, so you thought, you add 2 and 2 together and you thought he was bitten by the dog.
And this is obviously a child's mind, a 10-year-old mind. Dog's barking, dog must have bitten this person outside. This person is asking for help, police, and there's other people running around. So I'm thinking this is what's happened. But I was so scared, and because he was so loud, even blocking my ears, I couldn't stop. And because I was so frightened, I couldn't look out the window. And I think my biggest thing for me is that, why didn't I look at the window? If I looked at the window, I could have saved him. If I looked at the window, they would have got scared that they've got a witness. If I looked at the window, maybe they would have not stabbed him. And so having to live with that and being that 10-year-old child that went through that was very hard.
Yeah. Inshallah, I mean, look, end of the day, Allah's made his decision and it was his time to go. No matter what you or anyone would have done, one way or another, he would have gone.
Yeah.
And I guess that should give us some comfort. Yeah. We have to believe in Allah and his plans and have tawakkul in him and just trust his plans. Maybe, you don't know, maybe something else could have happened that's worse. Maybe Allah done him a favor, and most likely he has done him a favor by just taking him away. So let's, inshallah, I know it's easy for me to say, sitting here and listening to a story and say, yeah, let's be positive. But the reality is, no one could have changed it that day or that night. Now, let's talk a little bit about your dad. Like, where did he come from Bangladesh? And, when was he born here or was he born in Bangladesh? What happened?
Yeah, so my dad came when he was about 7 years old, and he was from Jagannathpur. And when he came here, he went to school here around Forest Gate, Upton Park, also went to college. He had a massive, friendship gangs everywhere, because of the kind of person he was. He was like a glue, everybody, his energy was so positive, like he will attract anybody and he'll make anyone laugh. And those kind of people, you can't forget. So people leech onto these kind of positive people, right? And if anyone had any kind of problem, he'll be the one. He's this very justice kind of person, like he will listen and he will give his opinion. So a lot of people used to console with him, and I remember even as a child, and even a few people that's come forward to us and said, your dad, Like, how do we explain how he was? He was just a godsend sometimes, because some of the situations that he helped people in, it's unmeasurable. And I think one of the thing with my dad was, and that I actually learned from him when I was young, like, you know, when I was 7, 8 years old, he would say to me, always be prepared, never be afraid, always fight for the justice, and always speak the truth. Because you know why? Because Allah's always going to be watching you. And no matter what, the truth will never hide. So he built me in a way and taught me and nurtured me. And I think it's quite important to do that to your children. I think the position I was in to even ask him who killed him is because this is what my dad taught me. You know, it made me this brave person. Yeah, maybe I wasn't brave enough to do, but to brave enough to even ask him who did this to him is because it's the kind of person he was. He would gain the knowledge and he would share the knowledge, and he doesn't matter how old you are. And this is why people loved him. And even in Bangladesh, like, people speak up for him still now. Till now, I got a voicemail to people saying, your dad, every time I think about him, my tears. A week before my dad died, he had sent money to the village, to all these people. It's the kind of thing he does. Next door neighbor hasn't got food, whatever. My dad will, don't go shopping. I'll pick it up for you.
So what's the makeup of the family? Is he part of a big family or a small family?
Yeah. He was. He's. I had 2 aunties, his 2 sisters, and then there were 4 brothers, and my grandma was around back then. She passed away 3 years after my father passed away. We were all residing around Upton Park, Forest Gate, East Ham, Walthamstow. One uncle was in Croydon. But when this whole incident happened, it was so shocking to the family. Everyone was devastated because he was the main centre holding the family together. And we all had left the whole of East London and resided in Surrey.
So, the night before he arrived, now obviously we know what happened to Asian men. Potentially they've done it. Now, did the police discover? I know there was a little small clip, a remaking of the incident on Crime Watch.
That's right, yeah.
And what it showed was, it did represent what you're describing of your father. He was quite bubbly. He was very nice. He was well spoken. When guests came to his restaurant, he was always talking to them. So it did give a very good insight onto who he might have been. Did the police say anything, like, any potential leads, who it could have been, or they're not allowed to say something like this?
No, I think I won't be here if there was those potential leads, to be honest. And being very young and being dependent solely on the police back then for my dad's investigation, they did thoroughly do a big appeal when my dad died. And back then it wasn't on the internet, but it was mainly papers, media, and it was global. Even every country knew about his murder. But it was ongoing for about between 7 to 9 months, his whole murder, because nothing was coming. Everything was dead end. They looked at the whole business side of things because he owned a restaurant with my uncle. They looked at, did he have an issue with the staff? Was there any staff that had hatred? Was it a competitor? They looked at, okay, he must have had some dealings with somebody, a bit of enemy somewhere, jealousy. They looked at families. Was there anybody in the family with any family conflicts? And even Bangladesh, they even looked into that as well to say, okay, does he have anything in Bangladesh, any other links in Bangladesh that he's dealing with that nobody knows or he didn't speak about? So all of these kind of categories was investigated back then. And me as a child, I'm a witness of that because I was part of it, helping them and trying to be there and listen to them because my mum she didn't know English. So I had to, everything that they came, I had to translate it to my mum, what was happening. And she was only 28. My dad was only 32, so they were a very young couple. And each time when the police did that, it was like they were getting nowhere. Then they come back and then they said, okay, Yasmin, it looks like it could have been a robbery that went wrong, but my dad had £1,000 of takings in his pocket that night, which was covered in blood. They didn't take the
So
money.
they didn't take the money.
They said he might have bought a dirty laundry bag. And sometimes, he used to stay one day and then he'll come back the next day because how far the distance was from Croydon to East London. So obviously he might have dirty laundry. So they said they could have come to attack him with the dirty laundry. They took the dirty laundry bag, but they didn't take the money. But they didn't attack him. He wasn't bruised. There was no struggle. It was just one stab straight through his heart. And it was deep, hence why he lost so much blood. And when they did the photo fit, we thought, okay, who does it look like? Do we remember anything? And it was even if you guys go back to the Crime Watch and some of the stuff that I posted, it was, even I remember from the past, from the witness, she said it was a Bangladeshi looking man, she turned around and said. But anyone could look like Asian, right? Anyone could look brown skin and have a side parting and have median build. We did an appeal again on his 5th year. Then 10 years. Just approaching them. Have you found anything about my dad? Is there anything more? And then it occurred to me, hold on a minute, this whole internet, the wide web, why can't we not put it? Because all my dad's stuff, the investigation has always been on paper, which they used to come, not even emails. And then I said, look, please, I kind of plead to you guys, please, is it possible if you can do a repeal, but can we put it on the internet? Because then if someone Googles it, they can find my dad's details, just in case they want to find out that we haven't forgotten about my dad. So they did that. They did the reappeal, and it was on internet and newspapers and Bengali newspapers again, mainstream media, it was ITV, BBC, all of them. It was everywhere, his 10th appeal. And then they're like, we can't do anything until the next decade, Yasmin. In between that time, we'll message them now and again. Some of the officers that was working in my dad's case were really good officers. And, because they know I was young and I was the only one trying to do this. My brothers were so young. They don't have recollection, but we kept my dad alive in between us. We talk about him. My mum talks about him, and that's how we kept my dad alive. And doing these appeals is like keeping him alive and to tell the world that we haven't forgotten. And we're not going to let you guys forget either. When we did his 20th appeal 10 years ago, again, I had to go back to the Met. Okay, look, my dad's 25th is approaching. Okay, what are you guys going to do? How are you going to do differently? Like, okay, no problem. We'll do a press release. You don't have to worry about. We'll do a press release, and the media will be interested, and we'll do a good 20-year appeal for him. And I was like, fantastic. Then they done it on again. They done a YouTube video with one of the police officers. He did it himself, in fact.
Yeah.
You'll find it on YouTube. I did a voiceover. It was quite important not to kind of like disclose who we were. Hence why any of the appeals, none of us are on there because of safety reasons. And they said after the 20th, they said, okay, Yaz, not really much lead. Few people called in, but nothing substantial. We chased up on them, but nothing came out of it. But don't worry, we're still not going to give up. If it gets to 30 years, we'll do a big push. We'll contact Crime Watch and we'll ask Crime Watch if they can do a reconstruction, how they do, sometimes they do like a reappeal. We'll try and get all the mainstream media globally and see if they can publish it on their news channels. Because we don't know where the killers are. We don't know where they're hiding. They could be anywhere, right? We know they're 2 Asians and now they might be 50, 60 years old. Some said, oh, they might be dead now. What are you going to do? There wasn't one. There was 2. Maybe there is 3. We don't know that. And I'm not going to know that.
Did the police do any forensics in terms of fingerprints and all of those things?
Yeah. So couple of stuff that I have shared and which was shared on the mainstream as well was there was Chinese containers in our front garden where they might have been waiting for Dad. They found 2 Chinese containers there. They had found my dad's keys was across the road and not near his car. Now, that could be a number of reasons. Maybe they struggled for the keys to get into our house for us. Or my dad, for safety reasons, he pushed, chucked the keys across the road so they don't come into our house. So it could be several reasons why the keys were chucked. They didn't go into the car. Otherwise, they would have found DNA in the car, like a robbery, how people come to get mugged and stuff. They found a jacket where the ground was actually damp, but the jacket was actually not. So that jacket was quite relevant. I think it's at Portland College or Portland University, denim jacket of a young lad's. That was quite a significant evidence because nobody came forward to claim that jacket. And yes, there was DNAs in all of those things. There was DNA on my dad's clothes. There was DNA in the containers. There was DNA on the jacket. But they've always said, it doesn't match anyone. And that's what we got. The answer was, there isn't a match anyone. So when I spoke to them, let's just say, to do a fresh appeal for them, and this was back in 20 years, I said, there are so many digital technologies you guys hear. I hear how Stephen Lawrence's case got solved. I hear all these murder cases getting solved. Me as that child and as growing up as an adult, seeing other people's murders getting solved, right? So why are you not solving my dad's case? You guys got all this digital technology, the internet, social media. Why are you guys not doing anything for my dad for this? Why? Because what? Because he was just an average guy? He wasn't a celebrity? It wasn't a racist attack? And yes, he said he was murdered by Asians. So what does that mean? Why am I not getting the same treatment for my dad? And hoping that, okay, you know what? When this 30 years come, they're really going to do this really well. And they didn't.
Has it passed the 30-year
It was
anniversary?
30 years exactly last week. Last week was 30 years. A few weeks before September, I was trying to chase the police. Okay, who's working on my dad's case? Contacted all of the contacts I had from emails, from phone numbers. One in particular officer, I had his number. He answered. He said he's retired. Of course, it's been a long time. And everywhere I was like, who's working on my dad's case? Okay, we're not working on dad's case. Okay, where is my dad's case? Somebody will get back to you. So I had to go through the normal process of dial 101, being a victim of such a big crime that was done in the 90s. Even considering I've done an appeal like 10 years ago, so it's not long ago, just being pushed back because to them he's not important. And not getting a response. And then when one of the media actually posted about my dad's appeal, they approached the police. And they responded. We had reviewed your dad's case on the 13th of August, 2024. If any information comes to light, we will let you know if there's any lead. However, this case is not active, but no murder case is ever closed. This is what happened to him. He was stabbed, and please call the incident number or Crime Stoppers. I read that online. They didn't even have the decency to phone me to tell me that. And I'm sitting there hoping, okay, any day now, police going to call me. Any day now, they're going to do the fresh appeal like they've done every year. No.
So do you feel let down by the police force?
Oh yeah, 100%. Let down from the police force. I mean, okay, I understand, things have changed, times have changed. There's budgets involved. Things are not done how it used to be back in the days. But being a victim of all of this, and police is your guardian, right? You feel safeguarded by them because you're like, they know everything. When you're a child, right, no one's bigger than the police. Obviously, no one's bigger than God. We know that. But being in UK, you're protected by the police. They're going to do all of this. And they didn't. Another media channel contacted them. What's happened? Where are we with this case? They said, oh, we are so stretched. Their words were, we're stretched. We had to pull 5 police officers off the special review team for cold cases. We've got unskilled detectives. Young people have now become police officers. They don't actually have the skill set to become police officers because of the lack of people that want to become police. That was their answer. If you know any information, let me know. Let us know if any leads come.
So are you saying if your father was a very high profile, celebrity level person, there would have been a lot more progress?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Why wouldn't there be? Because, he probably had, they would have had all the influential people involved, the MPs and, God knows what, the commissioner involved. But my dad was just an average guy.
Did you guys try your MP as well to apply pressure or?
Yeah, my brother's been trying. Both my brothers, behind the scene, they've been doing these things. Even just reaching out to some of the medias, I had no response. It's like, who do you go to when you have no knowledge of any of this, about media, about even doing an appeal properly, even holding a press conference? I am no expert. I am no detective. I am no police. And probably I don't even know mostly some of the evidence because obviously they haven't shared that with us. This is all recollection of what I have from the last 30 years. That each time when the police have come to us and explained to me, this is what's happened, this is what's happening, and this is the evidence. And getting to a dead end now? What? Because it's 30 years. If you look at one of the articles back in May, the police published of another unsolved murder case. I think someone called James. And it was a murder appeal for them. And on there, it says detectives investigating a murder appeal from 43 years. Detectives reopening the case. Detectives reappealing, urging people. And I read that and I was heartbroken. Like, what? Because my dad's Asian? Is that why? Or my dad's not important? And yeah, hence why I'm here, sitting here today. I had no plan to do this.
Hey guys, I hope you have found today's conversations thought-provoking and insightful. This episode was brought to you by Get Micro, a web design agency that's based in London who create beautiful websites for entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized businesses for less than £900 delivered within 10 days or less. If you are looking for a beautifully crafted website to express your products, services, or your ideas, please visit Get Micro. Please do consider subscribing to our channel on the platform you are tuned into. It is your subscription that motivates us to keep edging forward episode by episode. With that said, let's get straight back into our conversation. So what do you plan to, what do you think, or what do you hope the outcome should be?
The outcome should be, the whole reason I had to come out to public and do this appeal because police did not want to do it because they don't have the budget. Another reason why I did this is to remind everybody that I haven't forgotten about my dad. Neither has my family. My dad was brutally stabbed outside his own doorstep, being a British Bengali and not getting justice because he's been forgotten about because he's not famous enough. Having to live with what we had gone through and not to even get that support from Metropolitan Police or any other influential people to come and say, you know what's happened to you guys is injustice. Let's reinvestigate the case. Let's interview everybody again. Let's look at the DNA. Let's see if it gets matched again. Let's use a new digital technology and let's check his DNAs again. Let's put it on social media. Let's put it on this platform to see if anyone remembers anything, hears anything, and couldn't come out now. And back then, they can come out now. And this is why this appeal is for. Like you said, like Allah's planned all this. Allah's planned everything. And I know that. And maybe it was my dad's hayat to go the way he had gone. But at the end of the day, in this dunya, as I am still alive, and if I can appeal to people to say, just cast your memories back and just think any little information that you remember about my dad that you didn't come forward back then. This is your chance now. You're seeing this. You're seeing these podcasts. You're seeing the media. You're seeing the TikTok accounts that we've done for my dad. Like, it might jog some memory, your guilty conscience. You might be dying soon and you want to confess. Or you might be some people that have overheard conversations, right? And said, oh, actually, we didn't come out now, but you know what? We don't care now. This is what we heard. So and so and so and so. And that's all I'm appealing. I'm trying to see if I can get any kind of lead. Then I can go back to the police and say, you wanted lead. Go and do this. Help us. We're not against you. We need your support. We need your help. And someone said, oh, go to the top MP and see if they will help you with this. Who? I'm just an average person. Which MP? Are they going to read my emails? How does an average person get justice if they don't have contacts with celebrities and MPs and the justice system. How? What support is there available for victims like me? And there isn't any. And that's what it came down to. That there isn't anything.
Do you think eventually this case will be... I guess you can never solve a murder. I mean, you will find what happened and who did it, and hopefully they will get justice. Do you think that will happen realistically in your heart?
I'm here today for a reason. For me to even do the appeal and come forward, this was Allah's plans. It's not about me. It's not about every single person that thought, my dad must have been an enemy, he had loads of enemies. It's not about any of that. It's about being able to think back and say, look, why did you actually do this to my dad? If he was a horrible person, I understand. He had bad dealings, I understand. At least I could live with that, right? But knowing that my dad was one of the best human beings I've known, and everyone could vouch for that. Then why did this happen to him? And just understanding, and I know people said, maybe not in this dunya, in akhirah, you'll get your answers. Maybe that is. But at the same time, while I'm in this dunya, I'm going to try what I can. And I can't change anything without Allah's permission. But there's a reason why Allah wants me to move, and this is why I'm here. There's a reason why the police turned their doors on me, and I'm sitting here today. And I'm a true believer of that. That there could be a reason why all of this is happening.
What has been the reaction from the wider community? After say he was announced dead.
Announced it, as in like the press conference that we did on Friday. Yeah?
No, after
back in it was shocking. I mean, we were all taken to our grandma's house in Forest Gate, and there was like untold amount of people traveling from across the world actually that my dad knew. Funny enough, and what happened was, because my dad was murdered, the police wouldn't release his body. Because the post-mortem took 1.5 months. All of the East London mosque got together as a community to say, we need to bury him. We understand he's been murdered, but my dad didn't get buried until the 7th of November.
How many days later?
That was 18th of September, so just like well over a month. His body was not released. We couldn't bury him. And that was also hard. Being a Muslim, you bury people quickly. Yeah, we have to. That's the way it is, right? But we couldn't because of the investigation. So community got together. They tried to put pressure on the police to say, please release his body. And we then buried my dad in Wood Grange Road, Manor Park Cemetery, because there was no way we were going to, take it to Bangladesh or anything like that. And my brothers are all here as well, so it only made sense. And people, the cries of people, like, what do we do? The closeness with his mum, his sisters, his brothers, even my mum's side, the kids, like, all his nieces and nephews, like, they're devastated. A, the fact that he's killed, and B, the fact that, how do we all live? How do we carry on without the smile on our faces?
Why do you think, obviously you said budget was a problem with the police, but it seems like, from what I'm hearing, if they really wanted to get to the bottom of this, they could. What do you think is causing them to just sweep you under the carpet all the time, that you come forward and apply pressure?
Because we're not important enough. And probably because being Bengali, being Asian. And like I said, if it was anybody else, and if my dad had a race attack, maybe that was a main priority, Or like I said, if he was a celebrity, main priority. And because it's like, we can't find any leads, it's a dead end. It's not going to get solved. It's not important. Okay, we'll carry on. But to me, it's important. That's my dad.
Absolutely. So you think it's because you're not important enough, or your father wasn't important enough. That's why they're not interested in the case.
No. And to them, they're like, we've done what we had to do. There's no other leads. If a lead's come up, if you read the statement from the police in all of the media channels, where they said their responses, if anything comes to light, we will deal with it accordingly. But my question is, how would a lead come to you accordingly if this case is 30 years old, if you're not going to move on it? How is a new lead going to generate if you don't remind people what had happened?
Obviously, you guys have done your talking within family over the years. And did you ever think, you know what, we think that could have happened and that, like, did you reconstruct your own story in terms of what it could have been and who it could have been? Obviously, you can't put names out there. You can't, accuse someone until obviously there's substantial evidence that they've done it. Like, obviously you're a daughter, and I would probably do the same if it was my father, because knowing what caused the death is probably much more comforting than, I guess, not knowing what happened. It's like if my child goes missing today and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Where is my child? Like, where has she gone? Where has he gone? Who has taken him or her? So I understand your feeling, like not knowing, living in the staying in the unknown. Did you guys ever come to any sort of conclusions? You know what, this is what we think and this is as close as it gets, but we don't know.
I wish I could say that. That would have been an improvement in my dad's case. But the actual truth is we don't. We can't even sit here, finger point, pinpoint, or say, oh, it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been a business, it could have been family feud, it could have been insiders, could have been hired, could have been, dad got into wrong dealings. No, we can't. Because every kind of source was investigated back then. If it wasn't investigated, I understand. But it was investigated. And I am the main witness of those, right? And this is why it's so hard to even accept that fact. Like, not one single idea, not one single lead, not one single path to say, okay, he was involved with this, it could be maybe. But for the police to turn around and say, the last thing was, it was a robbery that went wrong. A robbery that went wrong, that's not good enough for me. How can it be a robbery right now? A small road like this, someone's going to come and kill somebody in their own doorstep waiting for them. To me, that makes no sense.
What about the guy who was wearing a hoodie and, he was...
in the far away, yeah. So a couple of key information. Another one was there was a white car passing the scene at that time from a witness saw. And they pledged an appeal to the public to say, if that was you that drove past in that white car, come forward, because it will eliminate any other further evidence, right? But nobody came forward. Nobody came forward to claim that was their car.
And there's no CCTV in this area?
Back then, there was no CCTVs, 30 years ago.
Wow.
Very, very hard. There was another person standing at the end of the road, and from one end to the other end, it's 1 minute walk, literally. And there was someone waiting there, looking at what was happening. Again, that could have been a key witness just passing by. Back then, it's 2:30 in the morning, okay? It's classified as a Saturday night. If someone was to stand and have a look at what was going on, then you would, again, the police said, just come and tell us that was just you, to eliminate. But nobody came forward. So the mindset of that is, were they the people that were involved, just checking to see what's happening? They're driving past because the white vehicle, they must have drove away to see what's happening as the police on the site. It could be, there's a number of questions that never actually got answered. And even this whole jacket, whose jacket is it? Have you lost the jacket? Why have you not claimed your jacket? Or the other plea to public was somebody was wearing that jacket all the time and now they're not wearing that jacket.
And it was in the middle of the road?
It was, yeah. It was found nearby the scene. Whose jacket is that? Why did you not claim it? But what's shocking for me in all of this is the road. That road has more than 25 houses. You're telling me not one person heard his scream apart from me, his daughter. You're telling me how loud he was screaming. Even forget his scream. The dog barking so loud. You're telling me nobody got up that night to look out the window what that was going on, the commotion. You can hear a pin drop on that road. That's how it is. But nobody came forward. And this is, again, I've pleaded to everybody, going back 30 years, if they lived in Burnells Avenue and were scared to come out, it was a very multicultural road back then. You're scared to come out, please come out now. Like, it's not too late. Just tell us what you saw. It might just help with building this case and building this evidence.
How is your mom?
She sits there, still cries for my dad, 30 years on. My parents weren't the traditional Bengalis, I would say, back then. They were very loved up. My dad and my mum, they were madly in love with each other. Until this day.
Was she from back home or here?
Yeah, she was from back home.
Okay.
My dad got married when he was 21, and my mum was 18, and they had me straight after. My mum came here, I was born here.
So 10 years, almost 10 years, 11 years relationship.
Yeah. But, you know, my dad was very, very modern, and, you know, he used to love, we used to go theme parks. But back then,
you could see, like, obviously from that reconstruction, like, you know, he had a taste for nice things, you know, he liked to look good.
Yeah.
And as you said, he liked his cars as well. So
yeah. And even to the last moment, you know, he's talking about his car. Just before, a month before he died, he took us to Thorpe Park, Southend. He took, you know, just all those things. He was very fearless. And we would go on all the adult high rides with him. And my mum would be like, why are you taking her on these high rides? She's only 9 or 10 years old.
You're just full of energy.
Yeah, my dad's like, she needs to be brave. She needs to be brave. She's coming on. And I was never scared. And this is why that braveness came out on when this happened.
Now that you look back, do you think he was just getting you, like, obviously something was telling him, look, just get them ready for, you know, for life, and, you know, going to Thorpe Park, Southend, you know, just a month before his passing or killing or murder. Do you think something in his heart was just pushing him to do what he's done?
No, he used to do that every year.
Okay.
We used to go on loads of vacations everywhere, you know, Bangladesh, or, you know, he just loved life, you know, and it's like, and he used to love food, and, you know, and feeding people. Constantly we had people coming over. My dad's invited so-and-so, he goes, no, come, because that was his character. So, you know, people turn around and say that, okay, well, we don't understand what's happened. You can't forget him even if you want to forget him, because he's one of those people that will talk to strangers.
Wow, that's amazing.
You asked one question, which was, how was the response from Friday? It was very overwhelming, number one, me having to do this and come in front of the media, especially Bangladeshi community as well. There was some negativity, not going to lie.
What do you mean? Like,
there was
what
negativity. Why are you doing this now after 30 years?
Are people like doubting your motivations and intentions?
You know, what is it? You want fame? You want center of attention? Someone said, you know, you're not going to find your dad's killers. They're dead. Someone come back and said, well, you're just going to, you know, have to live with this.
Are these like journalist people or just random people?
Just general people.
Or social media comments? Or?
Yeah, social media comments. You've had some weird phone calls as well. And like, it's like either trolling, I think. This is how it... But you're thinking, I'm just here for my dad. I don't care about any of this. You know, even friends or families or whoever, like, what are you going to achieve from this? I don't know what I'm going to achieve from this, but I'm going to try and see if there's any lead. And that's the whole purpose of all this. But didn't think, like, you know, when people say, when times like this, you know who your families are, your friends are, and who's there for you. I think this was a prime example after this.
Wow. Have you ever contemplated on hiring a private investigator or something to really... I mean, I think police do recognize those private investigators. I mean, I guess that might give you some perspectives and, you know, give you some peace maybe.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever considered?
We obviously, like, I think our hopes was so high up for the Metropolitan Police. Why would we need to get a private investigator? It didn't occur to us.
Mm-hmm.
But just seeing the lack of support I have just received and not received, that has kind of changed the vision. But then again, how do you afford that? Who do you find? Who do you trust that's going to have the access to all of my dad's evidence to fight this case? I think that's one of the main things. Like, which private investigators are going to go and find the DNA that the police hold?
True.
You know, you can pay them so much money and do this, but are they actually going to get the evidence? Are the police going to release this evidence? We don't know. So it never occurred to us. And
can legal pressure do something? Like if someone from, say, from our audience feels so sorry and says, you know what, I'm a lawyer and I can do such and such and I can apply pressure on the police. Do you think that will actually help?
If it will help, then help. I think any kind of help is a help, you know. Like I said, we're just average people at the end of the day. We don't have hundreds of thousands of pounds back in the bank account to say, yeah, let's go out there and let's do this and this. I don't have that kind of support to even approach those people because I don't have any kind of connections. But if anybody wants to and are willing to, with genuineness, this is such a sensitive discussion, it's such a sensitive topic to even go to the police, right? If they want to, then why not? At the end of the day, I've lost my dad. And I know that he's not going to come back. At the end of the day, I know God's going to punish them. I know that. And some people said, just accept it. You don't need to find the killers.
What do you say to those people who say, imagine I was sitting here right now and said, look, it is what it is. Yeah. It's 30 years, no CCTV. God knows, I came to this country in 1997. So that's like another 3 years before that. So it was backdated, this country. What do you say to someone like me who's saying, you know what, forget it, man, just move on, just nip it on the bud and just move on?
The question to them is, if that was their brother and their sister or their dad, would they give up? Would they give up? If that was your child, would you give up? Would you not try every avenue? I can't just give up just because this person said this and this person's. I've got to try. I'm still alive. And yeah, I might not have the sources or support or funds, because we are average people. But doesn't mean I accept it. No one's going to understand the pain I had gone through hearing your own dad scream for help. No one's going to understand that. No one's going to understand when he's in your arms and you're covered in blood and you're 10 years old. No one's going to understand that. And maybe I haven't had the chance to talk about what had really happened. Because police will only show what they show, which is on reconstruction, right? But I'm still that 10-year-old child looking and waiting to find out what really happened to him. And yes, my faith in Allah is so strong, and I know. But like I said, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't the will of Allah. So there must be a reason why this is happening. And whatever comes out of it, even if it is closure or even if it's finding something out, then so be it.
What are you going to say to those? Imagine you find those people, the two Asian men, and you're standing in court and you can see them. What are you going to say to them?
My biggest question to them is why? What did my dad do to you for you to really kill him to death? What? Because my dad wouldn't even harm a fly. And I think, with what we had gone through as a child, me, my brothers, my mom, the biggest loss that we're still living with, they're not going to bring that time back. Not having my dad to even walk me down the aisle, not having him to see grandchildren, not my mom being a widow for the last 30 years.
Wow, she's very loyal, mashallah.
And still she sits there, talks about my dad. We kept my dad alive in between us, My brothers had to grow up in a community without a father figure.
Does your mom speak English?
No. So we were completely, she was dependent on us because she was dependent on my dad. And, you could look at the killers and be like, we're going to get out of this. Nothing. But just knowing the truth, really what happened that night, why did I go through. If my dad was stabbed in the corner or he died of a heart attack, and you're like, let's accept it, Allah's will. He didn't. He died in front of the doorstep, and I am his main witness. I need to know why.
Two things. Do you think, as the police said, it could have been a robbery that went wrong, and maybe these guys didn't want to kill him, maybe they just wanted to threaten him, and then maybe it did go wrong, and then they were like, oh shit, what do we do now? Like, what do we do? Like, run for your life.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, they're not going to come forward saying, you know, I've killed so-and-so.
Mm.
So maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it just did go wrong. You know, like we see even nowadays, like, you know, where someone wants to, I guess, fight with someone or beef with someone, and then they don't really have the intentions of killing them, but they want to threaten them and they want to show them that they're really powerful. And then something really horrible happens and they eventually kill them. So could it be one of those cases where it really did go wrong? And secondly, I guess the fact that you've heard and you're the first witness, maybe this is, I don't know, maybe Allah's got something, you know, maybe Allah's telling you something, maybe He's talking to you. But so many things could have happened, no?
So many killings could have happened.
So many eventualities. And I guess on that note, you know, this country, obviously they want to gain control over pretty much everything. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think at least that way, when things go wrong, people would get justice? Or are you're not sure about it? You know, putting chips in our body and, you know, just knowing everything about us.
I think there's two ways you can talk about that. It's like, why do they want to know everything about us? You know, why do we not have the freedom to be who we are? But also at the same time, it's like, maybe it's a good thing. Because situation like this, they would have known my dad's heart rate was dropping and he's getting back to Sab because there was a Ring doorbell and there was cameras in his car and the CCTV captured all the people. It works both ways. It's about the way we're living and this generation we're living in with digital technology is so advanced. I think, you know, sometimes some answers relies on them. And this is what I'm relying on, digital technology right now. Because I've had all the basic stuff. I've dealt with it when we had nothing.
Yeah.
So I've lived to see both sides with nothing, digital technology and AI. And now I'm like, okay, hold on. There is digital technology AI. Why are you not using them for the DNAs? And the fact that you talked about, you know, so many eventualities, so many things could have happened. It could have been a robbery. But it just doesn't add up. And the police never explain, why were they waiting, having Chinese takeaway in our front garden, waiting for my dad? It doesn't understand. And just to go back to, my dad was working that night at the restaurant. He finished work, dropped his staff off in Poplar, then he came home. Somebody knew his pattern. And him carrying money, and if it was a racist mugger, then understandable. Oh yeah, we're going to get him, he's got money. No, he was just an average guy. So it doesn't make sense for someone to say it's a robbery that's gone wrong.
Well, I do wish there is a conclusion and, you know, they do find out eventually what happened to your father. And if anyone out there watching this episode or listening, whatever help they can offer, I guess every little helps. You know, whether it's legal, from legal background, even maybe you're a private investigator, maybe you're from that field, maybe you can, you know, help out and you know, try and find perhaps some more angles to go back to the police and, you know, apply some more pressure. Have you ever spoken to anyone about this? Like, I mean, we all talk. Sometimes we talk to ourselves. Sometimes we sit alone and just wonder. Have you actually spoken to a professional, I guess, therapist or something about your experience? Because that must have been quite a lot at that early age.
Last week was the first time I actually came out and spoke about it. And it's been very hard. Because it's an experience that is close to you. Obviously, a police statement was done back in 1994. Like I said, I didn't think I would have to. because my trust, my faith in the police was so strong. Like, they will deal with it. This is what's happened. We just got to keep trying. We've got to keep doing the appeals. Didn't think I'm going to have to come out and talk about it from my perspective. This is not about getting sympathy from public. This is not about getting fame. This is not about getting attention. He just was an average man. And we just want to find out what happened to him and why. And that's what it's about.
I hope, inshallah, I pray to Allah that you find the why. We all find the why of your father. May Allah bless him. May Allah, grant him the highest rank in Jannah, because I guess he's a shaheed.
Yeah.
The way I see, he's a shaheed. He's a martyr. So, and I hope Allah accepts it as such. And I really, really appreciate you coming down and sharing this, I guess, very burdensome story, because having to relive every time you speak about it is it just jogs your memory all over again, and now you have to go and try and hopefully forget. So I really appreciate your time and in sharing your story, your father's story, your mother's story, and we pray for you. We pray for you, and we hope that there is an end to this case.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And that's it for today on Side by Side. I hope you have found today's conversation useful. And if you are someone who can assist Yasmin solve her father's murder, please do come forward, comment below, or DM her on her socials. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the platform you are tuned into. It is your subscription that motivates us to keep continuing with our efforts on Side by Side. And with that said, we will reunite on our next episode. Assalamu alaikum.